Most people quit at the exact moment when things are about to start working. I've seen it again and again. They call it bad luck, timing, or reality, but most of the time it's just quitting too early. I'm not saying this to sound dramatic. I'm saying it because I've lived on that edge where stopping felt logical, safe, even responsible, and pushing forward felt almost irrational. Let me ask you something before I go any further. Have you ever been so close to giving up that you started convincing yourself it was a smart move? If that sounds familiar, comment below and be honest. I want to know how many people are standing at that point right now. Here's a hard fact most people don't like hearing. Progress is not linear. Real progress looks broken before it looks brilliant. When you're building something meaningful, the early phase doesn't reward effort, it punishes it. That's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. If it were easy, everyone would do it, and the value would disappear. I've noticed something very specific about the moment people quit. It's not when things are clearly impossible. It's when things almost start to make sense but haven't paid off yet. The work is heavy, the feedback is slow, and the results are just far enough away to feel imaginary. That's the danger zone. That's where dreams quietly die, not with drama, but with rational excuses. One mistake I see constantly is confusing difficulty with failure. Difficulty is not a signal to stop. Difficulty is data. It's information telling you that you're stretching beyond what you already know. If you quit every time something becomes uncomfortable, you guarantee one outcome. You stay exactly where you are. There were times when the math didn't work, when timelines were absurd, when people far smarter than me said the odds were terrible. They weren't wrong about the odds. They were wrong about what persistence does to odds over time. You know, when you stay in the game longer than expected, probabilities start bending in strange ways. Most people underestimate how close they are to a breakthrough because breakthroughs don't announce themselves. There's no notification, no countdown. You just wake up one day and realize that what used to feel impossible now feels obvious. But to reach that day, you have to survive a long stretch where nothing is obvious at all. Another fact people avoid: motivation is unreliable. If you wait to feel inspired, you'll quit early. The people who last aren't superhuman. They just build systems that keep them moving when motivation disappears. They show up when it's boring, repetitive, and unrewarded. That's not talent. That's commitment. Quitting feels good in the short term. It gives immediate relief. Your stress drops. Your mind calms down. But that relief has a hidden cost. It trains you to associate discomfort with escape. Over time, that habit quietly limits everything you try to build. There's also a social illusion at play. You only see people after they've succeeded. You don't see the years where nothing worked, where progress was invisible, where quitting felt logical every single day. Comparing your messy middle to someone else's polished outcome is a guaranteed way to sabotage yourself. If you're in a phase right now where effort feels disconnected from results, that doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It often means you're doing it right for the first time. Mastery always feels like incompetence before it feels like control. The real mistake isn't failing. The real mistake is stopping while the process is still teaching you. As long as you're learning, refining, and adapting, you're not stuck. You're compounding. That compounding just happens quietly at first. I want you to think about this seriously. If you quit today, what proof do you actually have that tomorrow wouldn't be different? Not hope, not emotion, actual proof. Most people don't have it. They just have fatigue. If this message is hitting close to home, pause for a second. Breathe. You're not weak for feeling tired. You're human. But don't confuse exhaustion with the end of the road. Sometimes it's just a signal to rest, adjust, and continue, not to walk away. This is where most people quit. Don't make that mistake. Here's the truth. Nobody outside your immediate experience will notice the grind you're enduring. Friends, family, even colleagues, they see the outcome, not the hours, not the failures, not the long nights where where you question your sanity. If you quit now, you're not just giving up on your project. You're giving up on proving to yourself what you're capable of. That's the deeper cost people rarely discuss. I've had moments where everything seemed impossible. SpaceX was on the brink multiple times. Tesla nearly went under. Solar City faced skepticism that bordered on ridicule. At every single one of those points, the logical choice would have been to stop, to fold, to walk away. And yet, I didn't. Not because I'm fearless, but because I understood one principle. Progress is invisible until it isn't. Think about this. Every time you push past a point where quitting feels normal, you gain something most people never get. Experience others only talk about in hindsight. That invisible layer of resilience compounds over time. It's what turns risky ideas into reality. It's what separates those who just dream from those who build. Here's a hard lesson I've learned. Persistence is often more important than genius. You can have all the ideas in the world, all the talent, and all the resources. But if you bail when the process gets hard, your talent becomes wasted potential. And let's be honest, most people quit far too early, underestimating the exponential curve of payoff that comes just after the hardest point. Many of the biggest breakthroughs happen in the period nobody else sees, after repeated failures, after the ridicule, after the skepticism. That quiet period where the world doubts you, that's your advantage. That's the point where the groundwork for success is being laid. And if you stop now, you'll never know how close you were. Most people confuse struggle with a signal that something is wrong. They think the universe is telling them to quit. But struggle is often a sign you're actually moving the needle. If everything feels easy, you're probably not growing. The hardest period often precedes the most significant results. That's not a motivational cliche. It's a statistical reality. Another mistake people make is assuming consistency equals predictability. It doesn't. You can work tirelessly for years and see almost no results. But that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're compounding. Compounding doesn't feel exciting, but it's incredibly powerful. That quiet accumulation eventually manifests in ways that seem sudden, but in reality, it's a natural consequence of time, effort, and persistence. One of the biggest traps I've seen is people quitting because of lack of momentum. They look for external validation, visible signs of progress, applause from others. Momentum is rarely visible in the early stages. Most of the time, it's internal, incremental, and imperceptible. If you chase only what's visible, you'll never build something meaningful. Let me give you a real-world example. When we were developing the Falcon rockets, failures were public, dramatic, and expensive. Every failure felt like proof we couldn't succeed. But in reality, each failure taught us exactly what we needed to fix, what we needed to improve, and what the limits were. The moment people around us wanted to quit was precisely when we were closest to achieving orbital success. If we'd given up, SpaceX would not exist today. I want you to internalize this. The point where quitting feels reasonable is often the point right before progress accelerates. Nature, physics, engineering, even personal development, they all follow this principle. The universe doesn't reward half effort or surrender. It rewards endurance, iteration, and relentless focus. Now, I want you to ask yourself, what have you almost given up on recently? Something important, something that matters. Think about how close you are to seeing the results your effort deserves. Don't let the invisible work be wasted, because the human instinct for immediate relief is stronger than your long-term vision. The people who succeed aren't lucky, they're stubborn. They understand that quitting is easy, but progress is hard. And real impact comes only after you've endured the part most people avoid. That's the secret most people never talk about. The point of struggle is exactly where you separate yourself from everyone else. So here's the challenge. Next time you feel like giving up, don't. Take a moment to breathe, reassess, and continue. Remind yourself that the discomfort you feel is not the end. It's the threshold before acceleration. Don't be the person who looks back wishing they had pushed a little harder. Be the one who keeps going, knowing the results are closer than they appear. Comment below if you've ever been at that edge where quitting seemed logical. Share your story. The people who see this video are the ones who can still push further. Don't let this moment pass. I'm going to tell you why most people quit at exactly the wrong time and why that almost always leads to regret. And the logic is brutal but simple. The human brain wants comfort. It wants instant gratification. It wants certainty. But the reality is nothing worth building exists in that zone. Success lives in the uncomfortable, unpredictable, often invisible work you do when no one is watching and nothing is happening. Yet, you're in that space right now. It feels like nothing is happening, like all your effort is wasted. That's exactly the point where most people give up. Don't, because just past this invisible threshold is where the magic starts to compound, where your ideas begin to take shape, where your persistence begins to pay off in ways you can't yet see. This is where ordinary effort stops and extraordinary impact begins. The moment most people quit is exactly the moment they are on the cusp of a breakthrough. It's invisible, uncertain, and often terrifying, but that's what makes it transformative. If you walk away here, you'll never know what could have been. You'll only know the temporary relief of quitting and the permanent regret of giving up too soon. Think about every revolutionary product, every groundbreaking company, every radical idea you admire. None of those succeeded on the first try. None of them had a smooth path. They were forged in repeated failure, skepticism, and what most people would call impossible circumstances. The difference between quitting and pushing forward is the difference between becoming a statistic and becoming a story worth telling. Persistence is a muscle. It strengthens the more you use it. When you push past the natural desire to stop, you build confidence, insight, and skill that cannot be gained in comfort. Every failure you survive, every obstacle you endure, makes the next challenge easier to face. That's why I say quitting is a habit, and so is persistence. Which one you choose defines the trajectory of your life and work. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Success is not proportional to effort in a simple way. Often it feels like you're working for nothing, but that work is invisible compounding. Every problem you solve, every late night you endure, every adjustment you make, it all accumulates silently. One day it manifests in a way that feels sudden, but in reality it was inevitable if you hadn't quit. So how do you survive the point where quitting feels reasonable? You focus on small wins. You measure progress in increments that make sense. You remind yourself why you started. And most importantly, you cultivate patience. Progress is not a straight line. It curves, it stalls, it doubles back, but it moves forward if you allow it to. I want you to reflect on this. If you quit now, your story ends here. But if you push just a little further, even when nothing seems to be happening, you'll look back and realize that everything you endured was necessary. That invisible grind, that lonely work, that discomfort, you'll understand why it had to happen. Most people fear discomfort more than they desire success. That's why most people quit. But I urge you to flip that ratio. Desire the result more than you fear the struggle. Embrace the hard, the unseen, the uncertain. Those are the moments that separate ordinary people from extraordinary achievements. You have a choice today. Walk away or keep going. Walking away is easy. It feels good temporarily, but the satisfaction is fleeting. The knowledge that you could have gone further, done more, changed more, that stays with you. Persistence, on the other hand, is messy. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, but it creates results that last. It creates stories that matter. Remember, the point where quitting feels natural is usually the point right before your efforts start paying off exponentially. The people who succeed aren't special, they just endure. They stay in the game longer than anyone else. They embrace uncertainty. They refine, adapt, and persist. That's it. That's the formula most people ignore. So I challenge you. The next time you feel like quitting, pause and think about this message. Consider how close you might be to success without even realizing it. Lean into the discomfort, keep showing up, push a little harder than yesterday, because that's how progress happens, that's how breakthroughs happen, that's how history is made. And when you finally cross that threshold, when the results start appearing, you'll understand why most people quit and why you didn't. That understanding is not just satisfaction, it's proof that persistence works, that your decisions matter, and that the edge of discomfort is where greatness is forged. Comment below if this resonated with you. Share your edge, the moment you almost quit but didn't. Inspire someone else who's standing at that same invisible line. The world needs more people who stay in the game when it's hardest, and that's exactly the message I want you to take away. Most people quit here. Don't make this mistake. Keep going. Keep building. Keep enduring. Because what comes next is far bigger than what you see right now. This is your moment. Don't give it away.